listening to America First Radio. Here is your host, Paul Adams.
All right, happy Thanksgiving, everyone. We have so much to be thankful for on this Thanksgiving, especially for America and in particular for Donald Trump. Now, as Christmas approaches, there's nothing I would like better than for Hillary to openly admit to her malfeasance. As a parting gesture of goodwill, as an example to the millennials and to the women who simply can't get over her defeat, it would be nice if she acknowledged her crimes and said, look, I deeply regret for the way I sold my office as Secretary of State. I am prepared to pay the price. Let the chips fall where they may. I want to start a new chapter. I want to help Donald Trump make America greater than it's ever been before. And I'm big enough to acknowledge my mistakes, and I confess that I ran for president hoping that by so doing I would be shielded from the brunt effects of justice. Well, I'm not holding my breath she'll do that. But, isn't it ironic that one of her last tweets on her timeline said, quote, Scripture tells us, let us not grow weary in doing good, for in due season we shall reap, if we do not lose heart. Hillary, you're such a scriptorian. Yes, we do reap what we sow, Hillary. I just wish you would make the 180 and come clean. It would be such a breath of fresh air. But like I said, I'm not going to hold my breath. Now, we learned that Mr. Trump in a New York Times interview said he would not pursue Hillary, that she had suffered enough. Now, I'm not sure what this is. Is this a strategy at this point? Certainly, he was voted in largely in part because he branded himself as a law and order candidate. I'm not sure who he's taking advice from. He may have inside knowledge we don't have. Maybe this is just a chess move on his part. So, let's suspend judgment there. Today there's a lot of things I want to discuss. I want to focus in on the Electoral College and how Hillary and Soros could steal the election using the Electoral College as a MacGuffin. We hear that Katy Perry wants a violent revolution. Kanye West spoke in favor of Trump and is now in a psychiatric hold in Los Angeles. Lady Gaga is calling for a revolution. See, this is where the disconnect takes place, right? This is where the tolerant totalitarian left is taking leave of its senses. They are cornered, and this is the way they show that love trumps hate. I hate to say it, but I think it's going to get uglier before the globalists leave our shores. Here are some more updates. Yahoo now claims that Clinton's popular vote exceeds 1.5 million. And my question is that with or without the voter fraud? We are witnessing the galactic collision of two forces. One is a dark force anchored in the subjugation of the human will and the human race, and the forces of light and truth, which are anchored in love and justice. And now, of course, bringing in the rear, Harry Reid now wants to abolish the Electoral College. That shouldn't surprise us. It's part of their MO. It's a ploy. And I'll explain why in a second. And do they want to abolish the Electoral College before or after they abolish the superdelegates? And where was the outrage when Hillary won the popular vote back in 2008, yet lost to Obama in the delegate count? Now, for those of you who are in a hurry and just want to get the bottom line of this episode, here's my summary. There's 2 points, basically. The first one is, I hope Donald Trump invites George Soros in his office for some informal chit-chat, some herbal tea, to basically tell him, look, I know and the whole world knows you are funding BLM and the anarchists. You've funded many insurrections before around the world, and I also know that Putin has a warrant for you. And I believe in giving people chances, so here are your options. You either stop the riots immediately and help me unify America, or on the first day I become president, you and your whole family will be considered enemy combatants. We will arrest you. We will drone your homes around the world. We will shut down your operations, all your hedge funds, your bogus humanitarian organizations, the whole 9 yards. Then we will proceed to prosecute you and convict you for sedition, rebellion, insurrection, seditious conspiracy, advocating overthrow of a government, registration of subversive organizations, and recruiting enemy combatants against the United States. And then, once you're convicted, we'll throw you into Guantanamo for the rest of your life. So how will you choose? I need an answer now. So that's the first thing I want to discuss in more depth later. The second thing is the Electoral College. This is a no-holds-barred civil conversation, okay? I'm 1,776% pro-America. But I believe that the Electoral College, as we shall discuss later on, is for all intents and purposes in place to keep a dumbed-down, uninvolved, compliant, and sedated public under control. The mainstream media and Common Core ensure that the masses don't use their common sense. And this is why Hillary Clinton and Harry Reid know full well that they can't repeal the Electoral College without an Article 5. So what they're doing is really kabuki theater, folks. Don't trust them. It's a ruse. They are plotting something. They are setting us up for an upset come December 19th. Here's what they could be cooking. I'm just speculating here. Let's say after an earth-shaking fake revelation about Trump that stuns the whole world, they have these co-opted, faithless electors go in and pull the stunt of the century and vote Hillary in. Then Harry Reid and Hillary will say, see, we never were in favor of the Electoral College to begin with. Don't blame this on us. Now, I pray this doesn't happen, but there is a chance. We cannot discount Soros. We have to stay awake. We have to stay vigilant. So I think this is why they keep dissing the Electoral College. Just my hunch. So that's it, folks, in a nutshell. If you have to go, enjoy your day. Happy Thanksgiving. Don't forget to follow the show on Spreaker. We need another 20 people or so, and we can move on to bigger and better forums like iHeartRadio. Now, for those of you who want to stick around, I have a lot to cover on this Electoral College. We're also going to hear from Bill Still. He has a fascinating report on electors in this election. And we're also going to hear from George Soros himself. But, just imagine if Soros was pulling these stunts in an Iranian election while he was living in Iran, or trying to do the same thing in Russia, funding insurrections. There's no way, because Putin wants him dead or alive anyway for financial terrorism. So we hear now that Soros is planning a very violent protest in Trump's inauguration. That's why I say put the fires out before they start. He has to be arrested. Have Donald sit down with him, give him a few options. By the way, I think Donald Trump tapping Sheriff Clark for Secretary of Homeland Security would be a very good thing for America. The optics are obviously great. Here's a black man towering at 6'7". He would shut down Soros, the BLM movement, the crybaby anarchists. You just don't mess around with Sheriff Clark. And I also love how Donald Trump has waved Mitt Romney goodbye after their meeting in Florida. It was that kind of wave you give to someone who is fading into the sunset. And Romney, I mean, the optics on Romney, he looked terrible. He looked ruffled, like he had been in a pillow fight. He walked off to one side of the camera and then realized he was going the wrong way. His hair was messed up the back of his head. He turned around, walked the other way, looking down at his feet. I don't know about the camera angles, but I just couldn't see his rat tail between his legs. I was trying to pick that out. So yeah, happy trails, Mitt. Enjoy your career as a wrestler. In the meantime, the swamp is being drained. Anyone joining Trump's administration must sign an agreement that prohibits them from lobbying for up to 5 years after they have left the administration. And from what I heard, it looks like Newt Gingrich does not want to sign. He has his rights. In further news, Jeff Sessions was tapped for Attorney General. General Michael Flynn as National Security Advisor, Mike Pompeo as CIA Director, Stephen Bannon as Chief Strategist, and Reince Priebus as Chief of Staff. And if he taps General James Mattis for Secretary of Defense, I think that would really round up the team nicely. All that would be left is for Rudy Giuliani as Secretary of State. I hope he does call Rudy. Now, Mr. Trump tweeted he was seriously considering Ben Carson as Director of Housing and Urban Development. I think he would make a great ambassador in the inner cities. He'd be able to maybe re-educate the communities for real progress in a real new economy. So I would say we also need some prominent Hispanics and women in high-profile positions. Speaking of which, Trump just tapped Betsy DeVos to head the Department of Education. Betsy is a billionaire. Her husband inherited the Amway business. She was working very closely with Jeb Bush, who was a pro-Common Core guy, and she also headed the Republican Party in Michigan. And we also find out that her hubby donated to the Clinton Foundation to the tune of $700,000. That's all thanks to the InfoWars team. So we'll see what happens. She says she is against Common Core. She is for charter schools. So if Jeff Sessions and the new FBI director don't nail the Clintons, we've all been had, folks. It's been nice knowing you. I'll stop broadcasting because there's no point. At that point, the Republic would be done. The law and order president at that point would have been either compromised and co-opted by threats, or this whole election has been a WWE. I hope justice will prevail. I hope that Hillary does pay for her crimes, but if it doesn't, I don't know, things will get ugly, I predict. I think Mr. Trump is looking at only maybe one term after that. And what kind of signal are we sending to our enemies abroad? We are telling them, oh, we just look tough, we just act tough. Yeah, we're into war games. Don't worry about us, We don't do real war. Now, I understand, at this point the nation does need to unify. We don't need any more divisiveness. We have enough from the left. We need to bury the hatchet. Let's get Trump in the White House, unite the nation, see what happens after that. And maybe, just maybe, God plans to mete out justice in his own way for Hillary. Maybe she will end up the same way Jezebel ended up in the Bible, where her servants threw Jezebel out of the balcony. Her body splattered below and the dogs ate her up. See, Jezebel was not much different than Hillary. She was what you'd call a nasty woman. When King Ahab, her hubby, offered his neighbor to purchase the neighbor's field and he was turned down, Jezebel told him, don't worry, I'm going to fix it. So she had some false witnesses accused wrongfully of idolatry, and the elders of the village stoned his neighbor to death as punishment, and then Ahab took over the neighbor's field. That's how basically the Clintons have operated over the years. Just look at the body count. And if I was Ivanka, I would steer clear of Chelsea. Sorry, not only is it terrible optics, it's like hanging out with a Gambino's daughter, but it also now precludes Ivanka of any chance of running for president in the future. In my humble opinion, people will remember the optics. But here's a great optic. Donald Trump settled the Trump University lawsuit out of court to pay $25 million. I don't know if he did it just to have a clean slate, even though he was not at fault. I have no idea. But it looks good. It speaks volumes about his character. Settled now, get it over with, move forward. Now, let's start talking about the Electoral College here, okay? Like I said before, if Hillary and Harry Reid want to abolish the Electoral College, you can bet your bottom dollar it's some kind of mental trap that's hatched by Soros, one of those action-reaction solution. Don't ever take what they do at face value. For them, it's always reverse psychology, and we're going to discuss it in depth here. But let me also make one thing very clear. I'm going to reiterate it. I'm convinced Hillary lost both the popular and the electoral vote and is now in death throes. Okay, she's coordinating with Soros to either steal the election or create a civil war. First, let's listen to Soros. Okay, I've played this tape before, but it's worth listening to one more time.
And so the electoral thing will be closer, but the popular vote will be a landslide, because we are a small minority of extremists, and so we are all moving in that direction. And while I don't think that Donald Trump has any chance of being elected.
But you think Hillary Clinton is a done deal?
Yeah. And I do think actually she's the one who's most qualified. But
that tells me that they are up to no good. It's not over till it's over. We're not out of the woods. And in an age when the Clintons can blackmail and threaten to kill anyone they want, tell me if you're not a little bit concerned at all about the integrity of the electors who will be going to vote on December 19th. How do you think Vince Foster ended up dead? Wait till you hear what one elector has to say at the end of this podcast. For some people, discussing the Electoral College, it's taboo. You don't talk about what the Founding Fathers put in place to alleviate mob rule. Okay, that's the number one reason everybody gives. We don't want mob rule, so they create the Electoral College. Really? Okay, fine. Because the Founding Fathers knew what they were doing, and the Constitution is sacred, and so on and so forth. Okay, so just chill a minute, okay? Like I said, I'm going to pull no punches, no holds barred. I want a government that is, first of all, truly of, by, and for the people, and not just any people. I don't want a compliant, sedated, uninformed, busted, bullied, and bamboozled people. I'm talking about a government that is of, by, and for a people that is informed, educated, awake, and engaged. See, I want America to last until the year 3000 and beyond. I want America to be a beacon of freedom and innovation for the rest of the world. And if it is to emerge as the beacon of freedom in the world, using the latest cutting-edge technologies, folks, we're going to have to think out of the box. We're going to have to vigorously argue, even against our own presumptions, our intransigent position, to get to the truth. That's what getting to the truth entails. That's what being transparent and open-minded is all about. That's what the Founding Fathers had to do. They put aside their egos and focused on solutions. And they gave us the best they had with the tools they had. I believe that when it comes to safeguarding the vote of the American people, we must go on overdrive, because the globalists have had us over a barrel for far too long. They're well too organized, too well funded. You see, as we progress, as we utilize the social media, as the prostitutes are replaced with alt news sources, as Common Core is replaced with top-of-the-line charter schools, as nationalism once again takes root, and most importantly, as WikiLeaks no longer provides crooks a safe harbor, we are going to enter into an era where the people will be more in control of their government. We will be truly going forwards as a government that is of, by, and for the people. We will be empowering the people. It will become just like it is becoming in Switzerland, more of a direct democracy as opposed to a representative democracy where the middlemen represent special interests and don't give a crap about the people. There will be no more room for crooked representatives because they will be discovered and ejected summarily. So this trend is irreversible. We are going towards what I call a collective consciousness of the hive, where the people as one act as one because they are informed and they take no prisoners. Now back to the Electoral College. Let's discuss how did it all start. Back in the 1770s, the idea of a government that is of, by, and for the people was so novel, it was almost outrageous. It was dangerous. And what model could the Founding Fathers draw from? It all started back with Thomas Paine, who sparked the revolution by publishing Common Sense in January of 1776. From there, the Founding Fathers were looking for reliable patterns by which to form the Constitution. And there were none. France was of no help. The French Revolution didn't start until 1789. The French took lessons from us. It was followed by the Haitian Revolution that went from 1791 to 1804. Then we had the Ottoman Empire that had governed the Balkans, the Middle East, North Africa. That's where the Muslim slave trade took place for 400 years. You know, they were enslaving Europeans. And Greece didn't fight its war of independence until 1821. So all we had throughout Europe, Russia, Africa, Asia, there was not a trace of democracy. All nations were ruled either by monarchs, by emperors, by despots, tyrants, or tribal chiefs. So the idea that the people of America could forge a social contract and form a government that was of, by, and for the people was a unique and preposterous idea. It had been tried to some extent back ancient Greece and the Roman Empire, but even then it was the elite, not the commoners, who held the voting power. Even in the Roman Catholic Church, only the cardinals got to vote for the Pope. So here come these brash, forward-thinking, inspired, rogue founding fathers. Some were born here in America, in the colonies, and at least 8 of them, including Alexander Hamilton, were born in Great Britain or the West Indies. And they started debating in May 25th of 1877 and ended in September 17th of 1877. And if the Pennsylvania Assembly didn't have to convene in Philadelphia Hall, they would have kept their discussions going longer. So they debated in the humid, fly-infested heat of Philadelphia with no air conditioning, no ceiling fans, none of the modern conveniences that we take for granted. And these men were some of the brightest, most headstrong, yet principled men of their generation. Many were educated in history and philosophy. They were fearless, even when they stood at 5 feet 4, like James Madison. Just to give you an example, Alexander Hamilton, he obtained his law degree in 6 months. He was a genius. He eventually served as the first Secretary of Treasury without pay. Take John Quincy Adams. After his presidential term, he went back into public life as a House representative. See, America meant everything to them. And so with God and the wind on their backs, they forged forward. Like I said, they had no Twitter, no cell phones, no paved roads. They had no fiber optics, no computers to run geospatial metadata simulations. But they had the printing press, and they had plenty of rumors, and they knew all about character assassinations, false flags, espionage, subterfuge, and what tyranny under a monarchy felt like when taxation without representation was rammed down people's throats. So they reached into philosophy, into history, into the quantum plenum, and with their faith in a supreme being, they debated and compromised and conceded points. These were not perfect men as we make them out to be. They had their dignity, and duels were common. No one dared question another person's character. And so at the end of the day, this ideal of a free republic trumped their egos. And after many concessions, their thinking distilled into the Constitution of the United States, which came into effect on March 4th, 1789. And by the way, I share my birthday with the birth of America. So the stakes were high. How to give smaller states equal footing with the larger states? That was of great concern. How to give the people ownership of their government? How to go about electing a president? So what they produced was a malleable, deficient document written at the behest of the people, which, amongst many other things, prohibited women and slaves from voting. And these impediments were resolved with the 13th, 15th, and 19th Amendments. So please don't just argue that the Constitution and the men who drafted it were perfect. They were not. America was and still is a work in progress. The experiment continues. It has only taken 27 amendments to get us this far, and we still have a long way to go. We truly have a government that is, in the purest sense, a government of, by, and for the people. It's also important to understand the historical context that the Founding Fathers were placed in. See, in those days, the nation, number one, was composed of 13 colonies which were jealous of their own rights and powers. They were suspicious of any central national governments. The population of the colonies had skyrocketed from 250,000 in 1700 to 2.5 million by 1776 and almost 4 million by 1790. Here's how the population broke down back in 1770. Virginia had 447,000, Pennsylvania 240,000, Massachusetts 235, Maryland 202, North Carolina 197, Connecticut 183, New York 162, South Carolina 124, New Jersey 117, Rhode Island 58, New Hampshire 62, Delaware 35, and Georgia 23,000. Secondly, the population was spread up and down 1,000 miles of Atlantic seaboard that was barely connected by transportation or communications. So national campaigning was very impractical. Thirdly, people believed in general that political parties were mischievous, if not downright evil. And finally, it was conventional thinking that the office should seek the man should not seek the office. In other words, gentlemen should not campaign for public office. So how to go about electing a president while taking all of the above into consideration? The Constitutional Convention considered several possible methods of selecting a president, and I have David Lippe to thank for the following analysis. One idea was to have the Congress choose the president. This idea was rejected, however, because some felt that making such a choice would be too divisive an issue and create too many hard feelings in Congress. Others felt that such a procedure would invite unseemly political bargaining, corruption, and perhaps even interference with foreign powers. And yet still others felt that such an arrangement would upset the balance of power between the legislative and executive branches of the federal government. And I say, had they only foreseen the treacherous machinations of the mainstream media. But, again, they were not perfect. They did not have enough foresight. They were not prescient enough. A second idea was to have the state legislatures select a president. This idea also was rejected for fear that a president so beholden to the state legislatures might permit them to erode federal authority and thus undermine the whole idea of federation, which is a very valid point. Here's the third idea, and it gets very interesting. Okay, the third idea was to have the president elected by a direct popular vote. Direct election was rejected, not because the framers of the Constitution doubted the intelligence of the public, but rather because they feared that without sufficient information about the candidates from outside their state, people would naturally vote for a favorite son, someone from their own state or region. And at worst, no president would emerge with a popular majority sufficient to govern the whole country. At best, the choice of president would always be decided by the largest, most populous state with little regard for the smaller ones. Either way, the Electoral College was patterned more after the Roman Catholic Church, where cardinals vote for a pope, to give the new republic a semblance of gravitas. And so we should ask ourselves, if the colonies had our telecommunications and our, I'm being facetious here, and our impartial debate moderators, our impartial media, our impartial super PACs, which will go to any lengths to reveal the most salacious details of a candidate's life, if they had WikiLeaks, for example, would they have gone instead with a direct popular vote? And my conclusion is that they would. As it was, the Electoral College morphed over the years. Keep an open mind here, folks. This is not rocket science. Nothing was cast in stone. Things were transformed as the nation progressed. The first design of the Electoral College lasted through only 4 presidential elections, because in the meantime, political parties had emerged in the United States. You say, what? Yes, something very, very strange happened. The very individuals who had been condemning the idea of political parties publicly, the very same people who drafted the Constitution while demonizing political parties, these very intellectuals who we immortalize as demigods, these people had nevertheless been building political parties privately. They created the first 2 political parties, the Federalist Party, which was formed by Alexander Hamilton and John Adams, and to balance it, the Democratic Republican Party, which was formed by Thomas Jefferson and James Madison. So that tells you a little bit about human nature, doesn't it? It is fickle, flippant, flawed. I mean, we only have to look back at the compromising position of some of the founding fathers, like Washington and Jefferson. Jefferson, who wrote the Declaration of Independence while he was a slave owner. Washington also owned slaves. So gradually, the idea of political parties took hold. The idea gained respectability through the persuasive writings of James Madison and other political philosophers like Edmund Burke. And we end up where we are today in this quagmire, in this cesspool that is the product of the 2-party political system. Now, I saw a tweet on this topic. It is so to the point and so patriotic. It says, the Electoral College is amazingly wise, a safeguard placed in by the Founding Fathers because, for some reason, they just knew God is good. And my response is, that is so patriotic. Okay, yes. Yes, God is good. So, electoral colleges really favor the two-party duopoly, as they can concentrate resources on the two-party system as opposed to 4 or 5 different parties. If you use the popular vote allows for more than 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 parties to step into the arena. So when you listen to Harry Reid and Hillary Clinton bash the Electoral College, I see them using reverse psychology. They really want the Electoral College because it serves their purpose. You know, how else can they gerrymander? How else can the globalists implement the divide and conquer strategy without a two-party system, which entails an Electoral College, due to the fact that voting districts and gerrymandering are the order of the day? Because I want you to hear what Bill Still discovered here with one of these electors. Okay, listen to this, and you tell me if the Electoral College precludes mob rule.
Fear and trembling still runs rampant throughout Trump supporters fanned by the MSM that Hillary Clinton still has any chance of stealing this election back from Donald Trump. The reason for the fear is the tsunami of coercive hate mail that Electoral College members are reporting in states Trump has won, designed to get enough electors to switch their vote from Donald Trump to Hillary Clinton in order to change the obvious results. The Electoral College voting takes place on December 19th, when electors assemble in their respective state capitals. Michael Banarian, age 22, of Oakland County, Michigan, is one of Michigan's 16 official electors who will meet in the state capital of Lansing on that day. He is the youth chairman for the Michigan Republican Party. He recently told the Detroit News that he has received threatening emails, lots of them, from people trying to coerce him to switch his vote from Trump to Clinton.
You know, I've just gotten a lot of, you're a hateful bigot, I hope you die, which is kind of ironic that they're calling me hateful but then wishing for my death. They don't even know me. But I also think, I've gotten threats specifically, I'm going to put a gun in the back of your mouth and blow your brains out, do a society a favor, throw yourself in front of a bus.
He explained that in the Michigan system, even if he did switch his vote for Clinton, it wouldn't matter.
I think that there's a lot of misconception about what our jobs are as electors. It varies state to state. So Michigan has elector laws. We have, in the state of Michigan, faithless elector laws that essentially say that if you attempt to cast a vote different from how the state voted, your vote will be voided and you will be replaced by another elector. So that vote won't even count.
Of the 57 previous presidential elections in U.S. history, only 22 meetings of the Electoral College have seen a faithless elector. Only 179 electors have been faithless in voting for the candidate they were pledged to vote for, totally in all of our 57 presidential elections. However, of those, 71 changed their votes because the candidate to whom they were pledged died between the election and the meeting of the Electoral College. Another 23 in the 1836 election abstained from voting for vice president as a bloc. That leaves only 84 times where an elector changed their minds. So, a truly faithless elector is very rare. However, the death threats towards electors are today rampant across the states Donald Trump won. I won't go through the lengthy list of threats the electors have faced since the election. Just suffice it to say that it has been unprecedented in both the number and the fury as the forces of leftist globalism idealism, anarchic communism, and radical Islamic terror have all been slapped with a surprise defeat in a single stroke by an indomitable long-shot candidate, Donald J. Trump. Faithless electors have never changed the outcome of any presidential race to date. Fortunately, Trump's monster vote overruled such a constitutional crisis. But even in this unlikely scenario of a massive rush of faithless electors at this point, there is still one final check the founders in their wisdom built into the system. After the December 19th vote of the Electoral College meeting in the individual states, the ballots are counted and the results are transmitted to a joint session of Congress, which is held on January 6th. So, Congress knows the results of the Electoral College vote from December 19th on. When Congress meets in joint session, it is usually a mere formality of accepting the votes of the states. So, in alphabetical order, the state results are presented. If there is an objection to the results in any state, for example, if election fraud was alleged or coercion of an elector was alleged, this is the time when that is decided. Any members of Congress can object to any state's vote count, provided the objection is presented in writing and is signed by at least one member of each House of Congress. Then Congress would immediately adjourn its joint session and return to their individual chambers to debate and vote on each objection. After that vote, the joint session would be resumed. If the objection is rejected, then that state's vote count stands as presented to Congress. By this means, the entire deliberative weight of both houses of Congress can be thrown at any issue that may violate the sanctity of the vote for President and Vice President of the United States of America. Yes, Congress would actually decide. And since the new Congress will still have a Republican majority in both houses, the ultimate outcome will, without question, be that Donald Trump will be declared the official winner of the 2016 election on that day, January 6, 2017, no matter what evil machinations take place to coerce individual electors.
I want to thank Bill Still for that. And yet, Harry Reid and Hillary Clinton are against it so that the rest of the country can defend it. When in reality it is indefensible, it is an anachronism, it leaves open the possibility of faithless electors, of electors that are being hounded and cajoled and threatened, as it's happening right now with some of them. And this notion that the Electoral College can't be modified, well, it can, but only through an Article 5 amending formula. After the embarrassing tie for president in 1800 between Jefferson and Aaron Burr, which took not 2, not 5, not 10, but 36 different votes by the House of Representatives to break the tie in favor of Jefferson. After that, the Electoral College had to be revised, and so we have the 12th Amendment. To prevent tie votes in the Electoral College, which were made probable, if not inevitable, by the rise of political parties and no doubt to facilitate the election of a president and vice president of the same party, the 12th Amendment requires that each elector cast one vote for president and in a separate vote, a vote for vice president, rather than casting 2 votes for president, with a runner-up being made vice president. The amendment also stipulates that if no one receives an absolute majority of electoral votes for president, then the U.S. House of Representatives will select the president from among the top 3 contenders, with each state casting only one vote and an absolute majority being required to elect. By the same token, if no one receives an absolute majority for vice president in the House, then the U.S. Senate will select the vice president from among the top 2 contenders for that office. Now, I'm a pretty rational guy. I may not be the brightest, bulb in the room. There may be others who are far more knowledgeable, clever than me. But I would like someone to explain to me how the 12th Amendment was revised. Because for me, I can't seem to find in the Constitution where it says anything about the House voting for a vice president separately from a vote for the president, where that was repealed. Where in the Constitution can I find that? For you constitutionalists, who really are die-hard originalists. And here's another question I have, and I know I'm being simple-minded here, okay? If we know that 306 electoral votes are going to, say, Donald Trump, and 232 electoral votes are going to Hillary, why can't these votes be registered electronically without people calling themselves electors? What am I missing here? Why do we need human beings to cast the vote? Is it because these electors may have room for a change of mind, to vote their conscience, to be somehow coerced or cajoled? As I said, we don't know what else George Soros has up his sleeve. All things being equal, should electors be subjected to harassment by mobs when the mob that lost the election won't respect the will of the people? Just saying, is that necessary? Can we not just use a mathematical formula and come up with electors? How about giving each state 2 electoral votes instead of a proportional vote? What am I missing here, folks? No one sees a problem here? Hear me out, okay? Just hear me out. I mean, the Clintons already got to James Comey and Loretta Lynch, okay? And you think they can't get to some Joe or Jane Doe who's out there doing his or her patriotic duty as an elector? You heard Soros on that tape. And we also know how the Clintons operate, okay? Just count the body bags. This election is for all the marbles, folks. And if the Clintons know they're going to jail once Trump is in the White House, and if Jeff Sessions determines there is ample evidence to indict them, what have they got to lose by pulling all the stops? Nada. And let's not forget, this election is their Waterloo, their Stalingrad, to borrow from Alex Jones. You gotta love Alex. He just shoots from the hip, man. And I don't know how he does it day after day all these years, putting out a message out there. Anyway, the Clintons could do it with impunity. They could go all in, and they could do it with the DOJ's assistance. And this would make for a great movie, call it The Elector, and base it on one of the electors who could completely turn the election around on its head. The opening scene would be 3 wise guys in black suits. They knock on the front door of the elector's home. He opens the door, invites them in. They tell him, hey, we need you to do us a favor. You need to vote for Hillary on December 19th. Because, well, for one thing, you will be $5 million richer, and your children will get to see their next birthday. But it's your choice. If you don't, well, you know how life is. Accidents happen. So, for Soros, what's another 50 million or 100 million if it means getting Hillary in the White House? And worst case scenario, he gets her in the White House and a civil war starts. So Soros still wins. It would be worth it for him. See, first the Clintons would co-opt the electors, okay, and then follow up with a vicious media attack on Trump. A kind of Billy Bush tape on steroids. And the media would then go to town. They would milk the story right up to December 19th, It would leave Donald Trump no time to defend himself. So the fake scandal would leave the country reeling, leaving the door open for faithless electors to switch their vote to Hillary. And the public would never know what hit them. And then, of course, the right would rise up in arms. What could we expect? We could expect maybe Texas to secede, California, Washington, Oregon, maybe split. You know, you get the picture. It's called balkanization. That's what Soros wants. Balkanize the country into chunks, divide and conquer, and then assimilate it into the New World Order. And then he'll tell us, I told you so. See, Soros is all about mind traps. That's what these social engineer types who think they're God do. They snooker the masses and they create chaos. When you get a chance, take a listen to ex-CIA Steve Piazenik on YouTube. He'll explain how they took down Russia. Similar tactics. I have a quote here from Soros when he was interviewed back in 2014 in Germany with Germany's Bild, B-I-L-D. He said, "I'm going to bring down the United States by funding black hate groups. We'll put them into a mental trap and make them blame white people. The black community is the easiest to manipulate." End of quote. You know, some people are going to say, no, it can't happen because it isn't legit, it's not legal. You know, there will be civil war if the people's will is overturned. You don't understand. You're not playing 3D chess here. You're in a 2D world, two-dimensional world. Soros would love to see a civil war. He's doing everything in his power to divide us along racial and political lines. You know, as things are, Trump has won 2,597 counties. That's 85%. And Clinton has won only 486 counties, 16%. That's why the map is so red. And the media will not report this. Just take a look at the red map on Google. So can you imagine the outcry from the right if the Electoral College vote goes to Hillary on December 19th? And for Soros, like I said, and that's why he needs to be arrested now. We've got to put the fires out before they start. That's why I would love to see Donald Trump talk to him one-on-one and tell him, George, you have your options. I'm going to put my cards on the table for you. Okay, this is all about America. It's not about you. It's not about me. The bottom line for me is the globalists need a two-party duopoly to keep us divided. They need the mainstream media. They need the fake polls. If you eliminate all that, if you eliminate the cover-ups, the fake news, the spin, the two-party kabuki theater, you would not need the Electoral College. You would have fair elections. So, do you want a smart America, a safe America, an America that is a beacon of freedom? Okay, if you do, first eliminate voter fraud. And you do that with biometric IDs. A retinal scan or a thumbprint. This is not rocket science, okay? It's pretty simple. None of this, get your driver's license and you can vote. Doesn't work. None of this, E-Verify. What is E-Verify? You're given a card with a chip, that can be duplicated. Come on. Only biometrically authenticated U.S. citizens should be able to vote. Period. No middle ground. No discussion. Next thing you got to make sure you include all the territories and all expats in the vote. You got to include Samoa, Mariana Islands, U.S. Virgin Islands, Guam, Puerto Rico in the vote count. That's another 4 million votes right there that are not counted in every election. And you got to include 6 million expats, Americans who are living abroad. As a U.S. citizen living abroad, I should be able to log on from home to my secure U.S. citizen account, do a retinal scan on my computer to authenticate myself. Now I have access to my account. I check the candidates. I check their platforms. I vote. My vote goes to a central NSA secure mainframe that is stored deep in the Rockies, not in some precinct in the middle of nowhere where someone can walk into it, remove it, replace it. No, none of that. And it's done. It's simple, foolproof. Without that, you do not have control. Now, if you want to stick with the Electoral College because you're a die-hard traditionalist and are some kind of old school nut, fine. Let's keep the Electoral College. But, you can call it something else. How about if we call it the digital electoral vote? Because at the end of the day, it's all about numbers churning in a computer. That would make a lot more sense. And how about just giving each state the same number of electoral votes? Keep it on an equal playing field. Maryland, Rhode Island, Wyoming, Wisconsin could have the same number of votes as California and New York, Florida. How is that? I hope I've put it into some perspective, folks. I just want to make America the greatest it's ever been before. So watch out for Soros and the Clinton body bags. And it's funny, I'm so thankful that I am in this process, because if somebody had told me 5 years ago that I would be, head deep in U.S. politics, I would have told them, go check yourself into rehab. Ain't happening. But thank God, here I am. So till next time, God bless America. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. And make sure you thank God for Donald Trump.